Okay, welcome to another Orbiter 2010 video. And in this video, we are once again going to learn a little bit about IMFD. Now, this video is pretty much a direct continuation of the previous videos on how to go from Earth to Mars. And the second video, right before we were getting ready to go out to Mars, we did a quick save here at Earth because we said that we wanted to show in the first example kind of an easier way to get out to Mars, and you saw in that video how simple it was. But by coming back to this save point, Dimitris is going to show us a more sophisticated way to get out to Mars where we can get basically all the way there without any mid-course correction of any kind. So I'm definitely excited to learn how to do this. All right, so Dimitri, tell us what we need to do. We got our MFDs kind of set up here. Have already completed the eject burn, I believe. So what do we need to do?
We are about to make the eject burn.
That's what I meant.
We have finished, we have finished with the launch, so we were about to make the eject burn. Now, we saw in the previous video that IMFD handles this pretty well, and with very minor corrections of about 15-20 meters per second, you can arrive at Mars. But this time we are going to be even more efficient than that and make a single burn and get all the way to Mars. To do that, we're going to set up a maneuver instead of letting the orbit eject program take care of the burn. Basically, we're going to use the orbit eject program as our guide, and we are going to copy the data from that, basically the time of eject and the delta V needed, and we are going to copy it to a delta velocity program, and then we are going to use the map program to see exactly where we're going to arrive at Mars. First, we need to switch over to the left side and open the orbit eject program on this side, because we're going to use the right side for something else.
Okay, and this has to do with the way we share these. So let's go to this side and open orbit eject over here on the left. Okay.
And on the right side, we can stop sharing right now and select the course program.
Okay,
Course
so
and delta velocity.
Okay, so on the right side, we're going to go to menu, then page. Then in order to unshare, what you can do is actually just put in the ID for this side.
Yes.
And that effectively unshares it. And then we want the, did you say the course program, I believe?
Yes, the course program, and there the delta velocity program.
Okay, so you'll notice when I came in here to course that it has this information already here. The way that we can basically go back to the previous set of options is this here is selected as target intercept. I found this confusing myself, so that's why I'm explaining it. But if with this selected, if you hit plus, you'll actually notice that now it comes back to these options. So now we can go down to delta velocity program and hit set, and now we have that program.
Okay, now you can see that it has the sun as the reference. Sometimes there is that minor glitch, and as the source is the Earth. You want to make sure that you always have this, the correct reference and source selected. In this case, we want to eject from Earth orbit. So we want the Earth as our reference and the spacecraft that we are on as the source.
So the source is GLO1?
Yes, as soon as you selected the reference, it auto-selected the source. So now you can hit a projection to change the projection of the orbit.
Yeah.
And change the time to match the time of ejection on the left.
The time of ejection over here, so we'll set that and we'll go 2015 and wait like a second. Now hit enter, and now these are pretty closely matched.
And now go again to prograde velocity and hit 3622.
Okay, so we're coming.
The DVF.
Yeah, we're coming down here to the DVF, and then we're looking over here for that number, and we're going to make it the same. This isn't completely dissimilar to like with transects. When you get up into orbit, then you kind of have your plan, but you set up a maneuver and reset your plan type of thing.
Yeah, it's very analogous to what happens there. Instead of when you set up a maneuver instead of the of the burn that the stage tells you. It's a similar thing over here. So now you can also see this angle over here. This is actually how long the burn will take. It will start burning here, and it will end the burn there. And you can tell that by looking at this angle over here. But anyway, now we need the map program on the left side in order to see exactly where this burn will take us.
Okay, so we're done with orbit eject, and basically we're going to bring up the map on the left side, which is kind of like looking at the encounter view. And again, I'll press projection to get a better looking projection. And if I understand correctly, we probably now want to bring up the plan on the left side. Is that correct?
Well, again, you want to set the correct reference and the correct target this time.
Okay, we are referencing Earth.
Where do we want to go?
Well, we want to go to Mars, so we probably want to reference the sun.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's reference sun and turn off AZO and target. What do we have? Target ecliptic, so we want to target Mars.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
You can zoom out a little bit to see the whole orbit. You can also press the display button in order to see the orbits of the other planets. If you want, of course, it's not mandatory.
Well, it helps understand what we're looking at.
And now you can press if you press the plan button, it will show you the hypothetical trajectory of this burn around the sun.
Okay, let's see that. So page over to these options and then plan. And we can see this is where we are, and the hypothetical for this burn would go like that out to the orbit of Mars. Can't really tell if we're making it or not, so I'm not sure what we're looking at. So what do we need to do now?
You can select the correct page that has the reference of Mars as the periapsis reference of Mars. So you can hit the cell button and switch between those three pages until you get the reference Mars.
Okay, so over here on the left we got the PG, which again goes between these options, and then we want the SEL, which will change this from this page 1 of 3 to page 2 of 3, and we want page 3 of 3 in this case because we want to reference Mars.
Okay, and right now this burn, the way we have set it up, is going to get us at a periapsis altitude of 35 billion meters, so we're not arriving close to Mars right now. And we want to fix that. The first variable that we need to change in the delta velocity program is the time. Because in the previous orbit eject program that we had, IMFD worked out the time of ejection and then made an integration for the burn. You see, the whole burn is calculated as if it was instantaneous. But now it actually takes time to make that burn, and we need to correct for that. So you add or take away a few seconds at 1x.
Okay, so we'll change the adjustment to 1x. And we don't know...
We don't know if we want forward or backward, but we can see we are going to use as our guide the periapsis altitude. We want to get that right dead at the center of Mars, so we want a negative value over there.
Okay, so adding in time's not helping, so let's go backwards a bit. And we want to bring the PEA all the way down to the surface. Now, are we going to get that with time, or do we may have to go time and prograde?
We are going to get pretty close, so if you see that it makes a small change each time you press it, you may want to go to 10x.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, because the changes are helping, but they're quite small. Okay, now we went from 36 to 16, so let's do one more at 10x. Now we probably want to go back to 1 because we're getting pretty close. And now it's going up, so we want to go, I'm assuming we want to find the lowest number, which is 194. Now start working with prograde.
Now, here is something helpful that you can do on the map side, on the left side.
Okay.
Hit the center button and select to center the periapsis at Mars.
Okay, P-Mars. Then we can probably zoom way in.
You can also press the soy button to see the sphere of influence.
Okay, we've got to go to the other page for that. And there's the SOI.
Okay, now this is the node of intercept, basically. And actually it moved, you zoomed in a little bit, I don't know.
Okay, let me zoom back out. So that solid, that perforated blue line is the intercept.
Okay, basically you want to get the blue line exactly at Mars, and when that happens, you will probably get also the periapsis very close to Mars. So you can zoom back in.
While we could, when we zoom in, we still want this line to be visible though, so we don't probably want to zoom in any more than that.
Okay, and now you can try adjusting the other variables and look at this line of nodes over here if it gets closer to Mars. And you also, if you don't look at that, you simply want to look at the periapsis altitude if it gets better or worse.
Okay, so those are 2 points of reference. We want to watch this blue perforated line here, and we want it to get closer to Mars. So let's put in a little bit more prograde, and that's going the wrong way. So let's go backwards with it, and we can see by doing that, the PE actually that's now getting worse.
Okay, so perhaps you want to give it a little bit of outward or inward before you try the plane change.
Yeah. So there's the low point. Now let's go some negative inward. That's actually going up, so let's go the other direction with it. And actually that's not helping really much either way.
So we know that now we use the last variable, which is the plane change. Now you may want to go at 10x for this one.
Okay. So plus is not helping. Let me even try 100. So a little bit of actually that's not helping either.
Okay, when you get to this point, you can try adding a little bit more time or taking away a little bit more time and adding a little bit more delta V.
Okay.
It's a case where you have to go overboard in one variable and then take away a little bit on another variable.
Yeah, very familiar with that from TransX. So if we take away a little bit of time, let's maybe go to say 500 on the PEA, and then see if
you can give it a little bit of delta V and see what happens.
Yeah, so if we go backwards now on the delta V, we might get lower overall. And actually in this case...
In this case, no. So let's try it the other way. Give it a little bit more time and a little bit more delta V.
Right, so back to 1x here. And so we'll go to about 600 there. Now let's go to the delta V. And okay, that's helping. That's helping.
We had 160, what was it, the minimum? 180 was the minimum we got before.
Yeah, so
we got 192 now. Okay, give it another couple of seconds forward in time and try again with the delta V.
Okay, so we'll bump the PEA out there. Now we'll go back to delta V. And lead to 10x. So now we're down to 165. Let's see if we can go
no, when you are at delta V, it would be better to go at 1x.
Yeah, I did the one bump at 10x and then adjusted down to 1x. So okay, so that seems to be helping us. So if we go...
So give it 5 more seconds in delta velocity and then try again.
Okay, so there we go with that. And I'm going the wrong way, so let's go this way. So we had a low point of 160. Let's see if we can go down below that. Now we're down to 136, 120, 114. Okay, so clearly...
So this combination helps.
Yeah, so a couple more seconds. 1, 2, 3. And now we should be... Okay, a little bit more time. 1, 2, 3. Okay, a little bit more time. Matter of fact, I can even go plus here on the PEA, because we know time is helping, so...
Yeah, but when you get to about 10 million meters, it would be best to use the other variables. It's about each step is very big right now with the second tenth and the delta V, the prograde. But you can
Okay,
make a finer adjustment. You can say you pressed once and it went all the way to 40 from
yeah.
here. So now you can try the plane change and the inward or outward at 1x setting and get all the way inside the planet.
Yeah, now just with a little bit of inward, we're getting down to the 4,000s, so now let's try plane change. That's wrong way. Let's go the other way with it. It's helping a little bit, but not too much, so let's go to plane change here, or inward, rather. And that's not helping anymore. Okay, so I'm kind of at this point where I guess we're just going to have to go over in one direction.
Perhaps yes, and you can also try again a combination 1 second in the delta velocity and one click on the prograde to see if it helps, because at the next time around it might help a little bit more.
Yeah.
So 3.9 right now was the best.
Yeah, and the delta V and the time's making too much of a jump all at once.
Exactly. But you can let it go one time and then go back to no. Use 1 second in the time, and it will go very high.
Yeah.
But you can leave it, and then try again with a delta V.
Okay.
Okay. So now go back to the prograde and see if we get even better than before.
Yeah, now we're down to 1,600, and then if we go again...
Now let's try and fine tune that.
Okay, so now over to, let's see, inward, outward. And yeah, that's got us pretty much all the way down. Just a little bit more of an adjustment with plane change, maybe. Let's go inward. That's the wrong way.
So these are not helping very much. How about one more time? 1 second in the time and then again the prograde.
Yeah. You just find that lowest point there with the plane change. About right there. Okay, so one more second forward on time, which jumps it way out. Then one click or so, a couple clicks or so of delta V. And that's jumping from 16 to 40.
You can also look at the re-entry angle, the relative inclination, and see when you're going, if it happens, when you're going from prograde to retrograde. So you can tell when you went through the planet, if it happens, of course.
Yeah. So right now,
Can we try and adjust the plane at this point?
let me go to 10x adjustment because that's too slow there. So plane, oh, that's not helping that way. And it looks like 16.21 is the lowest. Or 16, yeah, 16.21 is the lowest
Okay.
I'm seeing there.
Previously, we were at what? We were at 500 kilometers above the surface, and we wanted to get even lower than that.
Yeah.
So get this at about 18 million by giving it some plane change or outward, and then again take 1 second away from the time and lower a little bit the prograde.
Okay, let's go to there, and then we'll give it one more second of time.
Actually, take away, and now you had it at 10x.
Oh,
Go
yeah,
back.
that's...
One click back.
That would explain the huge jump. So 1 second of time. Now delta V,
You went forward this time or backwards?
Forward.
Okay, let's try the delta V, and if it doesn't work, we're going to go backwards 2 seconds.
Okay, yeah, we need to go backwards 2 seconds.
Okay.
1, 2, forward to the delta V.
Now you take away delta V.
Yep. And this time we're down to 14, 9. 9's the lowest I'm seeing here, and let's check inward, outward. That's the wrong way. So there we are, we're 1,000 below.
Can we go a little bit more, around 2000?
Yeah, let's see if we can... Yeah, there we go. One more click takes us to 2,400 below the surface.
Perfect. Go
Okay.
ahead and fly this plan.
Okay, good deal. Anything that we need to concern ourselves with the relative inclination or anything?
Well, we're arriving pretty much polar orbit, 80 degrees relative to the ecliptic. No, not right now. Right now, what I'm trying to show is how to get to Mars with a single burn. We're not going to worry about the base approach or anything else.
Okay, so on the right side, we press PG to get to these variables, and then we're just going to go to the auto burn.
I just want to mention one thing. Sometimes when you are in a low enough orbit and you use a lot of inward, it will drop your periapsis altitude. In this case it doesn't, of course, but you can check that over here. If we were in a 150 kilometer orbit and for some reason we used a lot of inward, it would take us inside the atmosphere.
Right.
So you want to check your periapsis altitude, the periapsis altitude of the burn, essentially, this value.
So I think what you're saying is we would kind of want to look at the burn vector just to see which direction the burn's going to be exactly, so that we don't dip inside the atmosphere.
Yeah, and you can tell that by looking at the periapsis altitude, because if it said that we are going to 60 kilometers, then we would have a problem.
Oh, okay,
But we,
yeah. Oh, so on the right side here, in the delta velocity, the PEA is saying 211.3, so that's the lowest we're going to get
yes.
here. Okay. All right, I thought you were saying to look at the burn vector to see if we were doing like a, a lot of inward or something. If we saw that we had 500 meters a second of inward, then we might, which I guess actually, inward, might dip us down into the atmosphere or something. So.
Yeah, this can happen sometimes if you use a lot of inward, but you wouldn't be able to tell exactly what your periapsis altitude would be just by looking at the vector. So this value over here is very helpful. If for some reason you are very low already in a low orbit and you are using a lot of inward, okay, it's not gonna affect us that much right now.
So our PEA is good. It shows here. So let's warp time forward to get to the burn.
Okay. Now, one thing you want to make sure is this time to have the burn vector, to be able to see the page with the burn vector, and have already the RCS set to linear, because we are going to have to make a small correction once the burn is finished.
Okay. So we've got RCS mode set on linear, and as soon as this is done, we'll basically keep an eye on the map program, and we'll want to do any last minute refinement.
You can also remove the plan while the burn is taking place and look at the real trajectory.
Okay, so PG on this side, plan, and this is showing actually what's going to happen. And we can see everything coming together here as we're getting down to the bottom of the burn. And now that the burn's complete, we want to tap translation a bit, probably forward. And we're at -3.
Now.
Say that again?
Okay. Yeah, you can also use control when you're very close. Control and a finer adjustment in the linear translation.
Right.
Now, this will take you to Mars, but I know from experience that a value between 2700 minus. Now you lost it completely because it went right for the center of Mars. So use a little bit of linear translation backwards with a control button pressed until you can see again your periods. Okay. You know, sometimes when you are aimed exactly at the center of Mars, you are going to lose the reference Mars page. And this is what happened previously. Now, I know from experience that a good value for this method for arriving at Mars with absolutely no correction is somewhere around 2500 and 2300 minus over here.
Okay.
2500 kilometers and 2300 kilometers. So go for about minus 24, you should be okay.
So we
It
got
doesn't always work, but it's a fairly good estimate.
So with control thrust, I'm going between negative 24 and negative 19. So I guess negative 24 is the best.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
if I do negative, or if I do control 9 again, it goes all the way to negative 1.9.
And now you can see also your relative, your inclination at arrival, but of course it's aiming at the center of Mars right now. That's going to change. But for now we're done. This is the only burn that we did in this flight so far, and now we can time warp all the way until we are inside Mars' sphere of influence.
All right, well, let's do that. That's very cool. So go ahead and warp time forward, and let me switch over to rotation. Kill rotate until we get out away from Earth so that we don't spin completely all over the place. And now we're at 100,000.
You can also zoom out a little bit on the map program to see exactly where the spacecraft is.
Okay, page over and zoom out a bit. And our craft is that white dot. Let's actually zoom in a little bit more than that.
If you want, you can change the center of the central body in the map program. We have it set at the Mars periapsis, so you can set it either on yourself or at the sun if the center doesn't suit you right now.
Yeah, it's kind of jumping around a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So let's put it on ourself, and then I think that'll be sufficient. And we can see our path out, and we can see how our PEA is changing here and there. But we're still fairly close to Earth. I guess that's Earth. Are we at 100,000? Yeah, we're at 100,000. Okay. What was the other option for centering? Was it the sun?
Yeah, you can center the sun if you want.
Let's try that. Yeah, that's a better view, because now we can see ourselves and the orbit of Mars.
Now you can see, of course, that wasn't as accurate as when you are returning from the moon or something like that. There's a much greater distance to cover, but the initial prediction is going to be really close. And when we arrive at Mars' weak sphere of influence, we're going to use only just a tiny bit of linear translation to get our periapsis altitude exactly right for a re-entry.
Yeah.
And we may even get lucky and then not even have to do that at all.
Yeah, so no mid-course corrections, but once we get out to where we're at Mars, we just need to fine-tune the altitude. This would be perhaps more important in the XR2 because you don't want to arrive at Mars and end up, 5 kilometers below the surface because it would overheat. Whereas with the standard Delta glider, you could have pretty much any altitude and still survive.
Yeah, pretty much. Even if you crash on the planet, you will survive the Delta glider. It doesn't really matter.
The only thing you can't do in the standard Delta glider, there are some situations where you can actually tear off the winglets or tear off the elevons.
I remember one time I was actually trying to do that, and I couldn't do that. I wonder when that happened. I mean, what kind of re-entry would I have to do
I've
in
succeeded.
order to do that?
I've successfully done it.
We should set up that as a challenge.
Yeah.
Break the Delta glider.
Destroy the Delta glider. Good luck, Commander. Yeah, I think what I did, actually early on when I was trying to learn how to land, I consistently, I tried to do my deorbit burn when I was only 1,000 kilometers from Cape Canaveral, because I didn't know anything, and I just thought that that made sense. And I would come down through the atmosphere at such a steep angle that was trying to control. I was trying to fly the Delta glider like an airplane while I was still at 7,000 meters a second velocity, and I managed to rip off the elevons.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind if I want to destroy one.
Give it a shot.
Yeah.
You'll get the master, the MWS. I think when you get that, then you'll notice that you lose control. You won't be able to steer very well. And if you look at the external camera, you can actually see, because the graphics are represented, you can actually see that they're missing.
Yeah, I remember that. I have seen that. Okay, so we're arriving at Mars, and you can see that the periapse altitude actually went the other way around than where I was hoping it would go. We were at minus 2000, and I was going minus 2400, and I was hoping to go up, but it went down, and now we're aiming. We're going to arrive at Mars, and we're going to be aimed straight at the center of it. So we can even do a correction out here if we want.
Yeah, because we do know that it's so far off that there's no point necessarily waiting till you get all the way to 0.01.
No, you don't want actually to. You also saw that this remained relatively steady. It wasn't oscillating that much. It went from minus 3181 to minus 3180. So we have a pretty good prediction of the periapse altitude right now. And you don't even have to orient the vessel. Simply try some linear translation in whichever direction you want.
Yeah, so a little bit that way, no good. A little bit that way. Okay, so a little bit of 1 from whatever orientation this happens to be is taken out closer to the surface. Let me try 8. Okay, so 1 and 2 is actually a combination there. And that's taking us out closer to the surface, although I'm not sure which side I'm going on. Am I retrograde or prograde?
You can see it over here by looking at the relative inclination. Now we are polar and slightly retrograde.
Actually, I'm not sure what you're looking at, because I see the RIN on the bottom left.
Yes, the RIN, the relative inclination relative to Mars, and we have the ecliptic as our source of as our reference over here. So we are at relative to Mars at 93 degrees inclination ecliptic.
Okay. Oh, okay. I see. Up here at the top, I'm looking at the RIN on the bottom.
I thought you saw the mouse over here. Yeah.
No, I couldn't see the mouse moving. I don't know. Sometimes I see you moving the mouse. Other times I don't. I don't know why that is. Okay. So yeah, now I see the relative inclination that you're talking about. Okay. So now we are.
You don't have to get it exactly at 20, because this far out, this will change slightly. But I usually take it at exactly at the surface, or where you have it is just fine, and then go ahead and get closer until I make a very, very slight correction. But right now, you saw, what did you use with a linear SS? It couldn't have been more than 4 or 5 meters per second.
Yeah, and I almost hit the planet again, because they're at 100,000x. It just, you go from 0.01 to 0.9 in like a second.
Okay, and nevertheless, the periapse altitude remained pretty much the same. So that was it.
Yeah.
One burn from Earth. We could have left it, of course, and hit Mars right in the middle. But since we want to arrive inside the atmosphere, we needed a very tiny correction.
Yeah, even the Delta glider wouldn't have been able to adjust enough, seeing that we had basically a path straight down through the atmosphere, and we couldn't have glided out of that one.
So, no way in that.
Yeah. So then we're just warping time forward here, getting close to periapsis, and that's it. Then you just have to simply go prograde, adjust the vessel accordingly, and do your normal flight. Very
Yeah,
cool.
this is a method that I use. You take a single burn, a very tiny adjustment, simply for the re-entry altitude, and then inside the atmosphere, I orient myself with the base, and I go ahead and land.
Yeah. Alrighty, well, we are once again over 30 minutes, so we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. I think that pretty well covers everything. Again, this particular video, you might want to go back and watch it once or twice to get, to get completely familiar with the different adjustments that were necessary, because it gets a little tricky there, where you got to adjust the time, and then you can see that it throws your PEA way out, so you have to go back with one of the other variables, prograde or inward outward. But you could see that by working with that combination of variables, you will eventually get the target that you want. And like Dimitris said from his experience, the target PEA that you want for Mars is going to be somewhere between 2,500 and something 2,420.
Something close to minus 2,500.
Yeah.
Sometimes you will get thrown in one direction. This time we got closer to the center of the planet, but sometimes you get thrown on the other direction, and there is really no good way of telling that, because it depends on the time of year that you're leaving to go to Mars.
Yeah, so basically using this method, you might find out in one particular flight that by the time you get out to Mars, you might get lucky and have no correction at all. You could have your PEA end up being 10 kilometers. In that case, you could just fly right in. And in another flight that you do a month later, you might get close to Mars and have your PEA at negative 3,000, in which case you would just want to bump your translation a little bit while you're still way out away from Mars to bring your PEA up above the surface. And there's just no good way to know what's going to be the case for that particular flight. But in either case, you're going all the way from Earth to Mars with no mid-course correction, and then just maybe a little bit of refinement there when you get close to the planet to make sure that you get your PEA set so that you're right there at the surface. All right, so I guess that's going to wrap it up for this video, and I think that pretty well covers everything that we wanted to cover for Earth to Mars as well. I'm not sure what the next videos are going to be about. We'll talk about that a little bit and figure it out. Any closing comments?
Well, we have covered everything that I wanted to show in this first series that we recorded during these past few days, and we'll keep making this. We also would like to see the comments of the viewers for the videos, and see what the viewers would like to see for our next flights.
Yeah, that's definitely a great point. Once these videos start getting posted, definitely leave your comments down below. Let us know what you like. If there's anything that's confusing, we can go back and cover it again in a future video. And if there's other objectives that you want to know about, for me, one thing I definitely want to talk about in the upcoming video is when we start off on a moon of another planet, like Ganymede or Io. How do we go from that moon back to a planet like Earth? Because when you go from a moon to a planet, it gets a little tricky, because you basically the steps are, in a very generic sense, you have to get up off the moon, then get into orbit around the planet, then go from the planet to your other planet. But there's a better way to do it, obviously. So
there are two main ways to do it. Either you drop your periapsis close to the planet and make another burn there, or you can go. Sometimes it's better to go directly from the moon. It really depends on the plan that you have set for yourself, and the dominant body, of course, of the system that you are at. Because when you are at Jupiter, it doesn't really make much sense to drop from Io to a lower periapsis and then leave. You're wasting a lot of delta V that way. It's always better to leave directly. But from the moon and Earth, it is always better to drop to a low periapsis at Earth and make a second burn there and go to your target. But we will cover that, and also the way on how to calculate the difference between the two, in order to select which is best.
Yeah, a lot of great information up and coming. Again, leave your comments down below. Let us know what you want to see, and we'll go from there. So thanks again, and thanks to Dimitri, and I will see you in the next video.
here, this is actually how long the burn will take. It will start burning here, and it will end the burn there. And you can tell that by looking at this angle over here. But anyway, now we need the map program on the left side in order to see exactly where this burn will take us.
Okay, so we're done with orbit eject, and basically we're going to bring up the map on the left side, which is kind of like looking at the encounter view. And again, I'll press projection to get a better looking projection. And if I understand correctly, we probably now want to bring up the plan on the left side. Is that correct?
Well, again, you want to set the correct reference and the correct target this time.
Okay, we are referencing Earth.
Where do we want to go?
Well, we want to go to Mars, so we probably want to reference the Sun.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's reference Sun and turn off AZO and target. What do we have? Target ecliptic, so we want to target Mars.
Exactly. 15-20 meters per second. You can arrive at Mars. But this time we're going to be even more efficient than that and make a single burn and get all the way to Mars. To do that, we're going to set up a maneuver instead of letting the orbit eject program take care of the burn. Basically, we're going to use the orbit eject program as our guide, and we are going to copy the data from that, basically the time of eject and the delta V needed, and we are going to copy it to a delta velocity program, and then we are going to use the map program to see exactly where we're going to arrive at Mars. First, we need to switch over to the left side and open the orbit eject program on this side, because we're going to use the right side for something else.
Okay, and this has to do with the way we share these, so let's go to this side and open orbit eject over here on the left. Okay.
And on the right side, we can stop sharing right now and select the course program.
Okay,
and the spacecraft that we are on as the source.
So the source is GLO1?
Yes, as soon as you selected the reference, it auto-selected the source. So now you can hit a projection to change the projection of the orbit.
Yeah.
And change the time to match the time of ejection on the left.
The time of ejection over here, so we'll set that and we'll go 2015 and wait like a second. Now hit enter, and now these are pretty closely matched.
And now go again to prograde velocity and hit 3622.
Okay, so we're coming.
The DVF.
Yeah, we're coming down here to the DVF, and then we're looking over here for that number, and we're going to make it the same. This isn't completely dissimilar to like with transects. When you get up into orbit, then you kind of have your plan, but you set up a maneuver and reset your plan type of thing.
Yeah, it's very analogous to what happens there. Instead of when you set up a maneuver instead of the burn that the stage tells you, it's the similar thing over here. So now you can also see this angle over here and delta velocity.
Okay, so on the right side we're going to go to menu, then page. Then in order to unshare, what you can do is actually just put in the ID for this side.
Yes.
And that effectively unshares it. And then we want the, did you say the course program, I believe?
Yes, the course program, and there the delta velocity program.
Okay, so you'll notice when I came in here to course that it has this information already here. The way that we can basically go back to the previous set of options is this here is selected as target intercept. I found this confusing myself, so that's why I'm explaining it. But if with this selected, if you hit plus, you'll actually notice that now it comes back to these options. So now we can go down to delta velocity program and hit set, and now we have that program.
Okay, now you can see that it has the sun as the reference. Sometimes there is that minor glitch, and as the source is the Earth. And you want to make sure that you always have this, the correct reference and the source selected. In this case, we want to eject from Earth orbit, so we want the Earth as our reference.
Okay, welcome to another Orbiter 2010 video. And in this video, we are once again going to learn a little bit about IMFD. Now, this video is pretty much a direct continuation of the previous videos on how to go from Earth to Mars. In the second video, right before we were getting ready to go out to Mars, we did a quick save here at Earth because we said that we wanted to show in the first example kind of an easier way to get out to Mars, and you saw in that video how simple it was. But by coming back to this save point, Dimitris is going to show us a more sophisticated way to get out to Mars where we can get basically all the way there without any mid-course correction of any kind. So I'm definitely excited to learn how to do this. All right, so Dimitri, tell us what we need to do. We got our MFDs kind of set up here. Have already completed the eject burn, I believe. So what do we need to do?
We are about to make the eject burn. And
that's what I meant.
We have finished, we have finished with the launch, so we were about to make the eject burn. Now, we saw in the previous video that IMFD handles this pretty well, and with very minor corrections of about